Okay. Come on. Alright. So close. Oh my god. This is the annoying part when it's like, oh my god, I am almost done for the night. And then it's like, and we crash again. No idea what's going on here. But anyway. Um... Alright. Anywho. So, as I was trying to say, the tap symbol is roughly equivalent to 2 mana. It's not an exact science there, but it's in that ballpark. And so Skycrier, you're looking at, if you were to make it an analog, 1 white plus 1 tap. You and target player each draw, or target opponent each draw a card. So, assuming the bodies are accurate, 2/4 for 4, 1/1 flying lifelink for 2. Assuming those balance, and we're just trying to balance the activated abilities. You and target opponent each draw a card for 1 white plus 1 and tap. We'll cut out the tap symbols now. You're looking at blue plus 3 to draw a card versus white plus 1. You and target opponent each draw a card. Allowing the other person to draw a card, it's a common assumption that drawing a card is worth about 2 mana. So if you're to take that card draw away from the opponent, one can argue that's an extra 2 mana. So the only difference, and this is very broad, this is assumptions, this is no tweaking done, but this is a starting point, is the difference boils down to this has got a blue activation cost, Skycrier has a white activation cost. And the blue makes a little more sense because it's straight up card draw. And the white makes a little more sense on Skycrier because it's mutual card draw. And otherwise and that's the only reason. And otherwise they both roughly balance about evil with each other. So I would say it's pretty close. Again, not an exact science with those numbers and everything else, but yeah, it feels about right. And would I play this? Yeah, in a deck that's running white and blue, where I'm heavy on white and I'm running some blue. And especially if it's based on humans and or soldiers, yeah, I could see it. And to draw the occasional extra card without giving anything to my opponents. Urborg Emissary, 3 mana for a 3/1. Back in the day, this felt about right. Nowadays, that would probably be 2 mana. Kicker cost of 1 blue plus 1. When it enters, if it was kicked, return target permanent to its owner's hand. I would probably swap the numbers around these days. Well, no. Actually, 3 mana for 3/1 is probably okay. Again, that'll be on par with a 2/2, so like Scathe Zombies. With two relevant, at least nowadays, two relevant creature types. Wizard had. Neither of these really had any actual support, but Wizard would get some in a couple of years. So this was okay, but then you're getting a Boomerang for the price of Disperse. Okay. Yeah. I would probably swap these around at this point, but that's at this point. And you'd have black +1 and blue +2. I would say I would probably still play it if it had an effect I was looking. I mean, return target permanent to its owner's hand for an additional 2 mana and only requiring a single blue out of that. Sure, I'm spending 5 mana, but I'm only needing a single blue out of it. That's actually pretty good because that's also mana denial when you need it to be. Shivan Emissary. This is going to be a similar setup. However, this is 3 to cast for the base 1/1. But if you kick it, which is how you want to play it, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated, i.e. Dark Banishing, which was black +2. Swap these numbers around and it makes sense. Go black +1, go red +1, black +2 kicker. Okay. A little worse, I would call Shivan Emissary. You know what? To make this, I could do this as a 2/1 and this would have been okay, I think. I'm not thrilled with 2/1 for 3 mana, but I can work my way around it. This is one of those situations I'd rather have the Urborg Emissary than the Shivan Emissary. Thunderscape Apprentice. This feels fine. This feels right. And this feels fine. This feels right. This is Jund. Is this playable? If you're looking for a minor boost or a minor drain, maybe. But if you upgrade to the Master instead of the Apprentice, sure, you're paying 4 mana for a 2/2 instead of 1 mana for a 1/1. Nowadays, that should just be double red. And you probably could have got away with that too. Double black, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's a big deal over the Apprentice, which is just target player loses 1 life. Double green, creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn, as opposed to 1 green, target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. This is a good chunk of the way to overrun. And it doesn't say only as a sorcery, so you can do this at any time. That is huge. That is swingy. This is fine. I think if you're considering the Apprentice, unless you've got a specific reason to want the Apprentice itself, you should be looking straight at the Thunderscape Master instead. It's just so much better for, I mean, yes, the costs are more, but it's so much more relevant. Because this is like 3 or 4 times, I would say at least 3 times as strong as the target player loses 1 life. This is probably at least 4 times as strong as giving +1/+1. So let's say 4 and 4. Well, you're paying your extra towards these abilities up here. Tower Drake. 2/1 flying and pay white to give it +0/+1 to end a turn. Honestly, just make it a 2/2. Just make it a 2/2. Turn it into Wind Drake, and then give it its toughness breathing. That's nobody is going to complain about it. Would play Thunderscape Apprentice if I needed something lower cost for some reason. Tower Drake, find better. Thunderscape Master, surprisingly really good. Colorless artifacts. Get through these real quick. 3 mana, 2/2 for Sparring Golem. Whenever it becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each creature blocking it. Everything that jumps in front of it makes the golem bigger. Are you playing with golems, son? Sparring Golem will do a lot more than it first appears. Hilarious. If you manage to give this thing Death Touch, let's say Gorgon's Head or Basilisk Collar or something of that nature, is gonna do a lot. Alloy Golem, 6 mana for 4/4. That's the color that you chose when it enters. I'm seeing 5 mana 4/4s at the same, at common. Don't bother. Even if the fact that it gains a color is relevant, don't bother. What was it? Stone Golem? Yeah, Stone Golem. 5 mana 4/4. Artifact Creature Golem. This costs 1 more than Stone Golem and gains a color. Don't bother. Find yourself a 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, something in the 4 to 6 range. That is that color. Maybe it's an artifact creature and has something else going along with it. Tech. You know what the secret tech is? If you play this and have all five basic land types, you have, for 5 mana, +2/+2, so a 4/4 flying, first strike, trample for 5 mana. I think any 2 of those is okay. Any 3 is going to be good enough. Like, let's take just the abilities. 2/2 flying, first strike, trample for 5 mana. Doesn't sound great, but you probably have some way to make it deal extra damage, in which case it starts getting silly. Because, like, first strike is just a dumb ability. 4/4 flying, 4/4 first strike, 4/4 trample. All really good. 4/2 flying, 4/2 first strike, 4/2 trample. Just pretty much any combination I would say any combination that's got at least 1 size boost to it is going to be solid. At which point, it's also a dragon. Okay, let's say you're playing mono brown, and you add Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and you add Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. you're only going to get green and black. This is going to be a 4/2 trample for 5. It doesn't sound amazing, but I don't think it sucks. If you end up with any sort of other basic land type in there, I think you're ahead. If you run off of plains, you get a 4/4 trample for 5. If you run off of islands, you get a 4/2 flying trample. And if you run off of mountains, you get a 4/2 first strike trample. They all sound decent enough, because don't forget 4/2 and 2/4 average to 3/3. And artifacts generally, at least at that point, cost slightly more than a non-artifact because they can go into any deck. Power Armor. 4 to cast, 3 tap. Target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each basic land type among lands you control. Keep in mind, wastes and snow cover wastes are basic lands, but do not have a basic land type. So the best you can get in a strictly colorless deck is +2/+2 with Urborg Tummy Yawgmoth and Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. But if you pull that off, and anybody can have those cards, 4 to cast, 3 tap, target creature +2/+2 till end of turn, I think is okay. It feels a bit expensive for the 4, but the 3 tap to give +2/+2 I think is okay. If you can add a third basic land type, which I think is where cards like this tend to be balanced at that point, on the assumption of I have at least 3 basic land types. Okay, what's a reasonable cost for having 3? I think 2 is not horrible. 3 is good, and anything beyond that is gravy. And yeah, again, it's target creature, not target creature control. There's probably better options to run first, but if you need this kind of effect, probably around number 7 or 8 is where I would put it. Lotus Guardian. 7 mana, 4/4 flying, taps for any color. Basically a much larger Ornithopter Paradise. Yeah. You might be able to make this 6. You might possibly be able to pull this off at 5. But probably be 6 nowadays. But 7 means you can cast it off a Tron. Yes, I said that. And there are ways to make Tron and similar sort of thing work in Commander. It's not easy, but it's doable. And if you can pull that off, having a 4/4 that can tap for any color is kind of decent. And incidentally, it's a dragon in case you care about things like that. Nobody ever cares about dragons, right? Right. Can I build colorless dragons? ID equals CT : dragon game paper. 12. Okay. Cut Draco realistically. Brings me down to 11. Okay. Not an unreasonable starting point. Mono brown dragons can probably pull it off. Chuntu stakes. Small creatures don't untap. Are you playing any sort of prison deck? Yeah? Throw this in. Why? Because it's going to wreak havoc on decks like squirrels and saplings and goblins and a bunch of other stuff. Phyrexian Lens. A manalith that costs you life in addition. If you're at all actually considering this, the big reason to consider this is because you want to lower your life total. Otherwise, run any manalith variant instead. I kid you not. Run any single manalith, including manalith itself, would be better than Phyrexian Lens. However, if you care about reducing your life total specifically, i.e., you actually actively want to, Phyrexian Lens is actually, it gives you a usable way to do it. Sabo's Web. When it enters, draw a card. Each land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Mana abilities generate mana. They don't cost mana, they generate mana. Activated abilities have a colon in it somewhere. So, let's go Karplusan Forest. Tap colon, add colors, tap colon, add red or green. This deals 1 damage to you. Both those abilities are mana abilities. All it does is it taps for mana. Dark Depths doesn't tap for mana. That part's not relevant. 3, remove an ice counter from Dark Depths. Has no other activated abilities. Damn it. Sabo's Web will leave Karplusan Forest alone, because it has 2 activated abilities, but they are mana abilities because they generate mana. Dark Depths, on the other hand, has 1 activated ability, but it doesn't generate mana at all. It removes counters. Therefore, Sabo's Web will look at a card like that and say, you're not untapping. That's how that works. And when it comes into play, you draw a card. No big deal. Urza's Filter. Oh yeah, so Sabo's Web, if you're looking for some kind of prison style deck, play that. It's going to shut down a couple of lands in everybody's deck. Ghost Quarter, Demolition Field, stuff of that nature. Strip Mine Wasteland. Yeah, I tapped it for mana. Cool, you're not untapping it anymore. It's going to hit most players. And they basically have to use it for its special ability when it comes to play, or it's never untapping until they get rid of the web. Urza's Filter, 4 mana, reduces the cost of all your multicolored spells by 2. I have a friend who likes to play his quote-unquote Goldgasm deck. Urza's Filter we'll turn around and look at the colorless part of the cost of that, like of each card in there, and oh look, you cost, red plus green plus blue plus 3. Okay, now you're red plus green plus blue plus 1. Oh look, you're, black plus white plus 4. Now you're black plus white plus 2, etc., etc. You're playing with enough cards that cost more than one color to cast. Again, I would probably say around 20 cards would actually make this worth playing. Planar Portal. I put this into a few lists. Planar Portal's job, based on the assumption that Jayende Tomb is considered balanced, which is 4 to cast, 4 tap, draw a card. This is 6 to cast, 6 tap, search your library for a card, put in your hand, then shuffle. Realistically, a lot of decks only need to do this 3 or 4 times at most. And you're like, cool, I don't need to worry about it anymore. Which is part of the reason why it costs so much to cast and activate as it does. Is because you're looking at, searching for cards out of your decks. You don't want it to be too cheap and easy. But I put this in a few decks because I want to be able to find cards. But I don't need them until later. Because often I have, maybe I've got 3 or 4 pieces that work together for some kind of combo. And I've got 2 of them, so I need I need to be able to pull off the combo for whatever reason, because sometimes decks don't work if you don't have the full combo. They just sit there. At which point you have a card like Planar Portal, and if you're not playing black, finding the specific cards that you need is harder. If it falls into a generic category, then blue can find artifacts, green can find creatures, white can find enchantments, green can also find lands. But if it's anything more, white can find legendary stuff. But it's hard sometimes, especially if it's a category that's not covered very often. I need a specific sorcery. You're not going to be able to pull that up very easily. So Planar Portal, couple is useful in some decks. I wouldn't put it in every deck, but I put it in some decks, especially where it's you need the ability to do the thing. Chromatic Sphere sees a lot of play, well, at least historically saw a lot of play in modern Tron. Partly because it fixed mana, partly because it draws a card. No idea if it's... I don't think you need a card like this in Commander, in general. Unless you're trying to combo off fast. But your typical kitchen table? Nah. There's better options. Your mana is probably going to be fine enough. Even if your lands come into play tapped, you're going to be able to have your colors. You might be behind by a turn, but you'll be able to cast your stuff. And as for the card draw, there's enough 1 mana artifacts and sometimes less that can draw you cards. I wouldn't worry too much about. Phyrexian Altar, on the other hand, I was debating between this and what do you call it? Aura Shards as the thumbnail. And I finally decided to go with Aura Shards because I felt that was a more suitable fit for what I want for a thumbnail for these. And I like the artwork a little bit better. And if you can generate a silly number of creatures and you suddenly need mana, especially colored mana, Phyrexian Altar does a lot of work. The remaining artifacts that are in the set are 2 cycles of 5. The cameos, run your manalith variant instead. 3 to cast, tap, add one of the 2 colors. Unless you're specifically going for, I want cards that specifically have my general's color identity in it, run your manaliths instead. The attendants. 5 mana 3/3s are eh. However, pay 1 mana and sack it for 1 mana of each of 3 consecutive colors, i.e. if you look at the back, if you go back, look at the back of a card, pick 1 color, and then the next 2 that are in order after it around the circle. Let's see here. Clockwise. I think that's right? Yeah, clockwise. So if you start with red, next one's going to be green, and the next one's white. That's where you've got Riz the Tenant. You basically want like 5 mana now, and then pay 1 and sack it, even if it's on the next turn, because that means you're spending 5 to cast. Pay 1, that'll reduce it down to 4, but you get 3. So now you can cast a 7-drop on turn, on the turn after, assuming you don't even hit a land. That's pretty good. And then lands, minus type basic. This cycle of 5. So there's 2 cycles of 5. Irrigation. So basically, this entire first row plus Ancient Springs. So these first 5 are all, again, they're all the same idea. It's just this time they all come into play tapped. You pick a color. It taps for that color, or you can tap and sack it and produce 1 mana of the color that's on the left and 1 that's on the color that's the color on the right of the key middle one. So if your middle one is green, on the left you have red, the color before it, and the color after it is white. So it'll tap for green, or you sack it and you get 1 red and 1 white. Then you get this bottom batch here, these last 5, which are basically all the same thing. They're dual lands that come into play tapped, don't have any basic land types, but they enter tapped and tap for one of the 2 colors. Think of the guild gates, but they are originally uncommon. Actually, they're uncommon across the board. So, the next rarity up, and they don't have any land types. And the last 2 cards to cover for invasion, the last 2. Archaeological Dig, tap for colorless, tap and sack it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So basically take Ancient Spring et al. Tap for colorless instead of tap for its initial color. Sack it, instead of getting 2 specific mana, you get 1 mana of anything. But it does enter untapped. So this is kind of like Archaeological Dig is the more generic version of Tinder Farm, Self-Revenge, etc. And Kilden Necropolis, the 1 legendary land in the set, tap for colorless, 5 mana, red +4, tap and sack a creature to do 2 damage to any target. Again, any target these days also includes planeswalkers and battles. And that, finally, after all that jazz, is the end of the stream for the night. And let's just take a quick boo at Invasion. Let's take a quick boo at Plane Shift. Terminate, pretty generic. Diabolic Intent might make it. Eladamri's Call. Might actually go Eladamri's Call for my thumbnail. Nightscape Familiar, Pauper. Hull Breach, aka Disandor Chant. Lure of the Undead, Orm's Chant, Star Compass. I think off the top of my head, I'm probably looking at Eladamri's Call. A lot of these cards see play elsewhere easily enough. And as for the bottom few, oh, some of these look like they're going to be fun. Anyway, that's it for this evening. We will see you guys next week. Pasta la pizza, everyone. Adios, and all that jazz. Bye.